Hey everyone, it's Andy here, and in this video I want to talk about my Adepticon 2023 Golden Demon entries. It's about a week since we finished at Golden Demon over in Adepticon and my voice has recovered. I'm just about over the inevitable con lurgy and I thought I'd take some time to talk about my entries. I shared the entire process of both Elrond and Glutos, my two entries, over on the Patreon, but I really wanted to do a separate YouTube video because otherwise, you're sharing it with the patrons, which is awesome, and then you post a picture on Instagram, but that's kind of it, and you don't want to write a massive caption, in my opinion, on Instagram. So it's really nice to have this platform, YouTube, just to talk about my experience and why I did the two entries I did. So that's what this video is about. No tutorial, I just want to chat about my entries and hopefully you enjoy looking at them. Last year, 2022, I entered a rather large diorama and had a bit of a mishap right at the very last week, so I wasn't super happy with the base, but on that was 5 miniatures, so quite a lot of painting in 5 miniatures, the same as a big squad. And I also entered squad with Saint Celestine, so basically I painted a ton of miniatures for last year and I really wanted to kind of change what I was doing moving forward. I wanted to paint much smaller projects to a higher standard. I really want to kind of do things I'm happier with. It's not necessarily about upping my game. Well, I am trying to improve, but it's more about painting something that I'm personally happy with. And I think that's a quest a lot of us are on, if it's tabletop or for Golden Demon, whatever. All of us are trying to paint stuff that we're happy with. So as opposed to last year where I entered 10 miniatures across diorama, duel and squad, I wanted to do just 2 single minis. And this is kind of scary in a way because the level is much higher, I think, in general in the single categories, especially Age of Sigmar and 40k. They're just really, really difficult categories. But I think you shouldn't think tactically or anything like that. It's about doing the project you want to do. And I had this idea for Glutos quite a while back. I absolutely love the look of minis sat in a throne when it's done well. This piece by Kirill was a real inspiration. I mean, I didn't even try to do anything like it, but just that whole kind of demon sat in a throne, I think it's a really good opportunity to do some interesting lighting and all the things I really love about painting. I was looking at the Glutos kit thinking, man, hidden in all that stuff, there's got to be a good miniature in there. So I ordered the mini, got it and built it as quick as I could just to kind of see if the idea worked. And I basically, stripped it down, built it together, and it just fitted on a 60mm plinth absolutely perfectly. And I was thinking, I really, really want to do this. I think it's a really nice size project and it's just got everything I want in a Golden Demon project. But I did this way back in something like May of 2022, so it was kind of like a proof of concept. I was like, I'll sit on that idea and when the time is right, then I'll definitely go for it. So the project was gathering dust and I just did a bunch of other stuff as you do, but then Elrond came out and it was a miniature that just, it's one of those ones, as soon as I saw it, I was thinking, yes, I'm painting that. It's such a small miniature and it's the sort of thing you can put loads and loads of effort and time into, and on the scale of things, it's still not going to take forever. And this is something I discovered I really liked. I loved painting, as best as I could, but on something that wasn't enormous and it didn't get really, really boring. Even things like the horsehair, which you might think is quite a boring thing to do, painting all of those hairs individually. It was just really enjoyable on such a small canvas and nothing was, boring at any time. I love painting non-metallic metal, but when there is tons of it, it's boring doing the same thing. But Elrond just had nice little bits of gold, so I felt I could paint these until they were as good as I can do right now. And when I finished it, it's the most satisfied I've been with a miniature in absolutely forever. I think because yeah, I just couldn't put any more effort into it. Certainly, there could be a lot of improvements, but for me, I'd kind of maxed out. And that doesn't happen for me very often. I always think, oh, I should have spent longer, I should have done this. But because it was a small project, it really made me feel good. And yeah, it was just one of the nicest things I've painted all year, I think. This really gave me my mojo, and I thought, right, I'm feeling good. Now let's come back to Glutos. And it had sat gathering dust for, 7 or 8 months, something like that, the idea. And I got to work and decided, right, let's get this done for Adepticon. When I decided to finally paint it, the deadline was tight. I had 6 weeks left before the show, which, to be honest, at the time I was thinking it's not enough. And looking back on it, yeah, it definitely wasn't enough. But I did finish it, so hey, I wasn't too far off. But I thought I've got 3 weeks to paint the mini and then 3 weeks to paint the base. So I thought if I can hit that target of having the mini finished in 3 weeks, then I'll push and I'll get it done. If I'm nowhere near, then I'll wait and I'll bring it to Golden Demon UK. After 3 weeks, I had finished the miniature and the skin was really difficult. That was the hardest challenge. I spent over a week on that, just going back and forth. And I wasn't 100% with it, but I just got so sick of trying to perfect it that I ended up making things worse. So it was time to move on. But things like the purple trousers, the cloth, I absolutely loved painting that. And that was a real win because it wasn't difficult in that I didn't have to correct loads of mistakes like I did with the skin. It just kind of worked. I really took my time and tried to do the best I could. But yeah, nothing went really wrong. Most of the time for me, it's about fixing disasters. But this was a nice win that I needed, and it helped me gather momentum to move forward and get the rest done. The base was much harder than the mini because it was just huge and a lot of the same textures. I actually feel I grew a lot painting this because originally I tried to airbrush the base because I thought it would save me time, but it made it look worse and I decided to go all in on texture. So in the end I didn't use the airbrush at all, I just stippled everything. And although this was time consuming, it was worth it for the end result because I had nice light effects and shadows, but then when you looked up close there was a lot of texture and stuff like that. So actually the stone was probably the biggest challenge for the whole project, just because yeah, it was hard to make it impressive with shadows and light, and there was just so much of it. And I think this is where I probably needed a bit more time. Certainly the sheer volume of gold and stone, yeah, that was tight to do in the 3 week kind of deadline I had. Really, I would have liked to have spent 2 weeks on the gold, 2 weeks on the stone, and then 2 weeks probably doing the details. I think in total, if I'd had 12 weeks, I could have done this, yeah, a little bit better, but it does become diminishing returns after a while, and it looks pretty much the same, just everything's a bit neater and tidier. But when it comes to Golden Demon, that's kind of everything. The final week was insanely stressful, and I had to do all these little details like the plates of food, and it was kind of like I had to do one major thing per day, and if I got behind then I wasn't going to make it. But I got to the end and I just had enough, so I actually had spare time to paint a whole day, but I just had enough for painting. I just couldn't do any more. And this is why you've got to start early. Not really the hours you need to paint, but just time to breathe and relax and, take time off the miniature and do a better job. So that's where I wish I'd started earlier, but we always say that. However, I think I'm going to start really early on next year's pieces. Anyway, I took it to the show and I had the best time with a bunch of friends. It was just a really, really fun weekend. Had a lot of laughs with people like Will Hahn and Neil Hollis, and when Neil managed to win the Slayer sword, it was just an epic moment. We'd had such a good time all weekend, and I hadn't seen Neil for quite a few years with COVID, so it was a real laugh just hanging out with him and just seeing his surprise to get the Slayer sword, because I don't even know if he was thinking about it was possible, but that was absolutely immense to see. And yeah, it was all worth it. I think in those final couple weeks, you're like, why am I putting all this effort into painting these stupid little things? But when I was at the show, I knew it was worth it, and I was really happy with my piece and the reception it got, and that just made me feel really, really good, to be honest. I definitely put a conscious effort into improving my painting with these two pieces. I felt like they were better, but when you look at your own stuff all the time, you don't really know. Sometimes you think it's bad and actually it's quite good. And then vice versa, you can think something's great, but then people can point out faults that you never really thought of. But with these, I was thinking, I think they're a bit better than what I've done before, and I certainly tried to. And I think, some people gave me some nice comments and feedback, and it was just nice, and it gave me a lot of confidence. And I'm going to take this forward with everything I do after this, and just try and spend more time on each miniature. At the moment, I'm enjoying painting smaller projects to a higher level, and that can change. I could want to do an army or something later down the line, but at the moment I'm just really enjoying trying to push my painting and grow, and that gives me the satisfaction. And you need to change why you paint depending on what you enjoy, and certainly my friends don't like to paint this way, so they just have fun. But at the moment I'm really enjoying that, and I really learnt that from doing Elrond, which is something I never thought I would do. Such a small miniature from Lord of the Rings, that's something I never do really, but it taught me a lot in just putting everything into a small project. I'm feeling more motivated and learnt a few more lessons, as we always do every year, and I'm definitely going to start earlier. I don't have, a really amazing idea right now. I think what I'm proud with Glutos is, the idea, of just taking that little part out of a huge kit. It just worked out, and I haven't come up with something that I'm quite so excited about just yet, but I'm sure it will come to me soon. I'm really excited by the slan, and it's another person sat down in a throne, so I think I'm going to make that my thing every year now, is painting somebody sat down. But that is the sort of thing where it's not a fantastic idea, I'm not going to convert it, it's just a brilliant model out of the box. So I'm definitely going to paint that at the soonest opportunity and spend a long time on that to make sure it's the best thing I can do. And then from there, I don't know right now, but I'm always going to rack my ideas for new entries, and we'll just see how it goes. But for now, I'm feeling really positive about Golden Demon because, I painted something I wanted to paint anyway, and I managed to get a good entry. And I think that's the key, is you just need to paint a mini that you're happy with. It's really easy to get bogged down into trying to win, and I think, that's fine. But if you don't win after that, it feels horrible. It's one of the worst feelings, is not winning after putting so much effort into something. So I'm trying to paint something where I'm happy with the result, regardless of if it wins something. And I was very lucky to pick up the gold for these miniatures, and that was just, the cherry on top at the end of a fantastic weekend. But the thing I'm most happy with is I'm painting minis I want to do anyway. Regardless if there's a competition or not, I wanted to do these projects to the best of my ability, and it's just nice to have that deadline and a place to share it with, to be honest. Anyway, I think that's enough rambling. I hope you've enjoyed it, and it's really nice to just share my thoughts about this project. Like I said, otherwise you just post one still picture on Instagram and say, here's my model. And it's great to just have this platform on YouTube just to talk about it. And I hope some of you have found it interesting. If you're interested in specific ways of how I painted this mini, then it's almost 3 hours of video on how I painted Glutos. So it's really, really in depth. And there's a 5-part series for Elrond as well. So if you want to see how I've done these minis, please check out our Patreon. And thanks to all the patrons who support us, because it allowed me to do these projects that I'm really, really happy with. So I can't say how grateful I am for everyone who supports us there. And then I get to paint these really cool projects. So it feels pretty awesome. But check out the tutorials over on there, and I'll continue to do really in-depth stuff. And it's just nice to share every moment of this Golden Demon journey, and people seem to care a little bit. So that feels kind of good compared to a few years ago when you're just doing these minis on your own and then you bring them to Golden Demon and that's kind of it really. So anyway, I could ramble forever about this subject, but we'll save that for a podcast episode maybe. Please, any comments or questions about these minis, drop them below and I'll try and answer them. Anyway, I will see you and hopefully bring another entry to Golden Demon UK. If not, it'll be next year in Adepticon 2024. See you then.